Hello, everyone. I'm Chris,
And I'm Ben.
and this is Nothing Specialty.
All right, so what's going on with you, man?
Nothing much. Something recently I watched was called Hazbin Hotel. Have you heard of that?
I have not. What's that on?
It was just an animation on YouTube. It was an independent animation, so the people just put their work in and made it. It's a 30-minute pilot episode for a potential TV series called Hazbin Hotel that they're wanting to make. And so it was
Gotcha.
it was pretty interesting.
Their pilot.
Yeah, their pilot. It took them like a year or more to make, though. About a year ago, they came out with like a video, one of the songs in it called "The Happy Hotel," and so like a bunch of the internet was ablaze with like, "Oh, this animation looks so amazing," and they're saying the F word, and "Oh, it's so cool," because it's kind of an edgy animation. It takes place in hell, and these people just basically so you die, you show up in hell, but there's no way to die once you're in hell. So there's an overpopulation problem. And so once a year, there's a giant purge where souls are deleted forever.
Oh.
And so the princess of hell has this great idea to try and save souls instead of having them deleted forever. And so she puts up this hotel, and she wants to call it the Happy Hotel, where it's supposedly supposed to rehabilitate these demons who were, sinners in life and were, drugs and sex and like all that stuff during life. And she wants to try and make it all better in this life so that maybe, hopefully, there's a chance they could go up to heaven instead of being deleted forever. Who knows if that is actually like a feasible thing that could happen? She's just speculating, but she wants to try this idea, and everyone laughs at her, of course. So
yeah,
but yeah, it's a really rowdy, crazy, vulgar, just fun adventure in hell, where after the purge, there's a bunch of a bunch of gangs were wiped out, and so there's turf wars over the territory that just opened up, and there's a bunch of warfare and stuff that happens, and it's a fun little show, and the animation's pretty good.
Okay, sounds like fun.
Mm-hmm.
I've just been working a lot.
yeah.
I watched one thing on YouTube I found interesting. It was an atheist, a Muslim, a Jew, and a Christian all go to heaven and meet to God.
It's just like a comedy sketch based off that premise.
I don't think it was a comedy. It was like a really deep philosophical thing.
Oh,
it was interesting because essentially the atheist was like, he tried to be a good guy. He would give money to the poor when he could. He did charity work. Just never went to church. And God's like, oh, you can go and essentially like, oh, you can enjoy the snack bar. And then the atheist, or the after the atheist goes away, the Jew and the Muslim and the Christian all want to talk to God. And he pretty much is like, why did you make me out to be such a bad guy? Why do you think I'm so mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, wait, you were killing each other down there? What's wrong with you? Why would you think why would you think an all-loving, all-powerful being would want you to kill in his name? Mm-hmm. What's your problem? Like, what, you thought I would hate unbaptized babies? It was essentially him being like, I'm totally here and you were all right, but why were you all being dicks?
Yeah. I can definitely see that.
It was the opposite of South Park, where no one knows who is right, except it turns out it's the Mormons. No, it's like, you're all right and you're all assholes.
Yeah. Like all you really needed was to be a good person, and you took it way too far in the opposite direction.
Exactly. Yeah.
Jeez.
So I thought that was a pretty interesting philosophical one. Like, what if it turns out there's definitely a God, but through the centuries, it's all been muddied, and he's like not nearly as picky or mean as we all make him out to be.
Yeah, I mean,
can you imagine how he would react, like when he finds out what we think of him?
Yeah, it's a really interesting way to frame it. Where'd my train of thought go?
That left the station.
But yeah, so like that's definitely a possibility that, yeah, like all this religious text that we have, even from like Buddhism or Hinduism, like all of this stuff started from the right place, but then got twisted by people, just like I'm sure the Bible was twisted by countless people, and the Quran and all that jazz. You know, it was translated and changed many times since the original writing.
And it turns out God's just a big old hippie, loves everyone, doesn't understand why we're all fighting.
So yeah, like maybe Buddhism is the closest thing to like what the actual, like, you know, original sentiment of God was, is just, you know, love everyone, like it's all right, just make it through and be a good person, you know. But then every time someone wanted to take those beliefs and manipulate the population to do it, like rulers and stuff, like Constantine, who, you know, basically made Christianity legal and changed a bunch of it, you know, it's all tainted with politics. And
yeah,
so like maybe in the beginning it used to be all friendly and stuff, but we've lost sight of it.
God starts talking to people in heaven. When did you think I wanted you to start sacrificing baby animals? I love goats. Why did you kill the baby goats? I mean, it's nice that they're up here with me now, but like still. Oh, I gave you dominion of the earth, but I didn't think you'd fill the oceans with trash. Why are the penguins brown? They weren't that color when I left them here. But yeah. No, that was the most recent thing I saw, and I was just like, this brings up an interesting question. But yeah. So, this is our first podcast, so none of you know the structure. So the first thing we do is we talk about what we've seen and what all that stuff, and then we're going to do a current event topic. We're going to talk about that. We're going to argue, which is what everyone loves. Debate, all that fun stuff. Debate is a better word. Argue implies hate. Which then we're going to do a silly topic, and then we'll do a past topic, so a history topic. So I went ahead, and because it's our first one, I only had so many to randomize. So for our current event topic, information is really hard to come across. Everyone's information is different. I understand that whole everyone is entitled to their opinion, but now it feels like everyone's entitled to their own facts.
Oh yeah.
That's my big thing is people want their opinions to be treated as facts. Without using names, while I was working at McDonald's, I think you know why I'm calling it that because I don't feel like getting sued. One of my coworkers is talking about how a certain former first lady was responsible for Henry Epstein's death, or Jeffrey Epstein's death. And I was just like, where's your proof? And he was like,
Follow the
where
money,
did you
man.
get your evidence? Yeah, he said essentially stuff like, you just have to follow the money. And I was like, dude, if we followed his money, it would take us to every important person in America and probably a handful outside of America. I was like, this guy met with princes.
If he
following his, that is one big money tree to follow. If anyone who had money to do with him was responsible for his death, there's a lot of important people going to jail.
Yeah.
but like at the end of it, like I pretty much said, like, I pretty much said, like, so you have no actual evidence that she did it other than than the Clintons have been involved with him in the past. And he was like, yes. So I was like, so you can't say she did it, like, definitively. I was like, you have just as much evidence she did it as Prince Henry or President Trump did. I was like, they've all seen and met this guy. He's like, okay, it's just a feeling, all right. He's like, I admit it. It's a feeling. I just have a feeling that she did it. But this is also a guy who, like, a friend of mine who, like, really hates on her. So, like, having a feeling that she did another bad thing.
Yeah.
So that's what I feel like our atmosphere has come to, though. Like, people have feelings and they have these little opinions. And they feel like they should be treated as though they are facts. And everyone's guilty of it nowadays, it feels like.
I'm kind of surprised.
And it just muddies the water.
I was kind of surprised how like how ubiquitous that conspiracy theory has become in our.
Well, the irony is it started because I think, I could be wrong. I think it was the Alex Jones show tweeted something out.
Oh, probably.
But it was something equivalent of that show tweeted something out.
Yeah, or maybe
Trump
just talked
retweeted
about it on their show. Like, it's just,
yeah,
it makes
and then it was retweeted
sense
by an important person, and then everyone's like, oh, well, if this person of authority is tweeting this, it must be true.
Yeah.
And it's like, and that goes for everyone nowadays. I swear, like, probably Kanye West could tweet something and everyone would be like, it's true.
Yeah.
The Illuminati's real because Kanye tweeted it. And it's like, just because he has money doesn't mean he's right. Just because he's a pseudo singer doesn't mean he's right. I'm not taking that back, by the
way. Yeah. I've enjoyed his music, but yeah, I wouldn't call him a singer. All right. Anyway, so
I mean, he's a singer. And,
I get it. And it just seems so bizarre that, like, people, like, it makes enough logical sense that they accept it as possible, but then they take that and they go, well, since it could be, I'm going to say it is, and they just start going with it. They just start. Yeah. And I can't. I just can't.
It's information is just so muddied nowadays. I mean, and it's to the point where it's like you try to get real information, and sometimes you're going to be wrong on it, and it sucks, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
Like it's really hard to research something and get accurate information nowadays. But also, it's like companies nowadays can just pay people to like research a certain thing and expect them to find a conclusion. Like they start with their findings and they try to formulate a hypothesis to back their findings.
Yeah.
And then it muddies the water for the people doing research that is like the antithesis of it. And it's like 90% of scientists are going to say one thing, 5% are going to say another. And then there's this 1% in the corner and they just happen to be the research you choose to use, but they have a corporate sponsor. So it's like, when I don't know, McDonald's says that burgers don't lead to heart disease. Yeah. And they pay, but the research they're using is someone they paid to research it. Maybe we should call that into question. Mm-hmm. Like, I get the argument of the other. I get the argument that the other 90%, like, oh, what if there's big money to be made in like doing this? It's like, yeah, but their funding came from a whole bunch of different sources, from this university to this rich old lady who just wants to do something stupid with her money. Yeah, like, like they don't have the person who's responsible for the problem in their back, like paying them,
Yeah, like, hey, like nowadays, cigarettes are healthy. Brought to you by Camel. Like,
exactly. That's actually a thing that happened back in the day, before cigarettes were made. Like all these cigarette laws appeared. Like the way the tobacco companies fought it was they didn't try to fight against they fought against the science, which made no sense. But like people who wanted to smoke and wanted smoking to still be a thing, they just believed it because like, oh well, your science says this, but my science says something else. And it's like, yeah, but like maybe don't believe the person who's paid to get a certain result.
I feel like if the science community wanted to like change that, it would be pretty easy. They've got like I'm taking an ethics and science class right now at CWI. I'm learning that they have like structures set up for malpractice in science and studies. And you have to report biases. So, and if there's something that is, and conflicts of interest, that's mainly what it is conflicts of interest. So if there's a conflict of interest, it has to be reported. And if it's not, there can be, severe penalties and punitive action against those scientists. And they could be, kicked out of
especially
the community.
Depending on what their research is about. If you're researching something that affects people's health, then
it's got externalities.
If you're researching, you're right. And it's kind of like, I think a lot of people think like all scientists are this close knit, like super villain community, it feels like. And like, I get it. Like I'm taking a paleobiology course. Science is a difficult process to work your way through. And it's like, there's a lot of information there. And so for someone who's not like educated in the process, like, it just seems like they're making crap up off the top of their head and you just feel left out. But it really is a lot of people constantly debating with each other. And it's not that uncommon for like scientists to congratulate another scientist for proving them wrong. That's a very common action.
Yeah.
Because these scientists couldn't progress with their own research if some other scientists hadn't been like, you're wrong and this is why, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Because when they're going down the wrong path for 2 years, obviously that's going to cause problems. Like, so that's why I don't get this whole it's like the flat earthers. I'm sorry, we just lost any people who believe in the flat earth on our podcast. So
we're not going to miss
ahead
them.
of time. But like there's this global conspiracy to prove for the earth to be seen as flat. And it's like, why do you really think we all care that much? You really think all these scientists care that much? You really think we can be tricked that easily?
Yeah, it seems seems like they just want to believe something is more than it seems so that they can see themselves as smarter than the rest of the world.
Yeah. Exactly. It makes them, I think it makes people, and that's the other thing, conspiracy theories nowadays. Conspiracy theories get treated like they're facts.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, while I was learning about evolutionary psychology, one of the things that was brought up is that nowadays, our new version of the boogeyman or the werewolf is conspiracy theories. Like, we live in a time and age where, we're not scared of going out at night and being attacked by a vampire monster anymore, because this isn't the Dark Ages.
Yeah.
But humans are practically programmed to invent something to be scared of, despite the fact we're on top of the food chain. It's hard to explain that process, obviously, because psychology is already a weird enough thing. But people treat conspiracy theories nowadays with the same reverence we used to treat Nosferatu.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's
and it's kind of
Bigfoot is real, and you could run into him. That's the new. Yeah, I guess that's not as new, but that's the new. Yeah, vampires and werewolves.
Yeah, the government has this thing going on. Beware.
Oh yeah,
and then and people speak about it as though it's fact. And it's like the Henry Epstein thing again.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the conspiracy things that come through that are just down to the fact that there was a lot of problems with how his incarceration was handled.
Yeah, it's like skepticism, but to the nth degree, you know?
Yeah. There are people without access to all the proper evidence, just quoting other people, then coming to a conclusion.
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna lie, I've looked at the people who actually got to be hands-on with this whole thing. I've looked at what they had to say, and there were definitely some problems with how his incarceration and his death was handled. And I would totally believe it if I found out a guard killed him. But this was not I'm sorry, we all would have. You don't think someone would have noticed some important figure walking to the prison and like a godfather being oh, you've betrayed me, man. I got to get rid of you.
Well, I mean, I don't think they think that the Hillary actually walked in there and killed him with her own hands.
I didn't say Hillary for a reason, because everyone supposedly has killed Epstein.
Well, yeah, but they're saying that money came from those places, and probably it was a guard. That's what they're thinking, and I'm not even sure if the guards that were responsible at the time for him have been fired, or if they're just on leave. If they've maybe come into a bunch of money, who knows? You know, that information isn't there, so people are just speculating.
Yeah, exactly. We people are just speculating things, and yeah, I could see someone wanting this guy dead. A lot of people wanting this guy dead because of what he was involved in, and no one wants to be associated with him anymore. And if because of what he was involved in, I'm sure there's someone important out there who was also involved in that shady stuff. But again, he had his hands in so many different pockets that it's there's no way, unless we followed that money from that Cayman Islands account. I'm calling it that. I don't know where it would have come from, but unless we find that proof of where that money came from, it's there's really no way to say who did it. And that's again, we don't know if anyone was paid that yet, at least to the best of my knowledge. Oh, there's something suspicious about this incident, therefore it must be a conspiracy.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, it just turns into this whole thing. And it's going for all sides of people right now. And it makes it hard.
I think most of the people...
For all of you who don't know, I'm a very big middleman. I criticize everyone and everything. I don't believe in I believe in this being on the side of what is right, not a group, which makes me the worst kind of human being of all.
Apparently.
I'm the reason Trump won, because
Mm-hmm.
I didn't vote for either one. Because I don't I'm sorry, I don't like voting for trash.
I didn't vote either, but for different reasons. I'd say like my values are very conservative, but I am hesitant to like identify as a Republican. So if you give me facts and logic, I can see your side. You know, I'm more in the middle in that sense as well. But I'm also kind of less hurriedly to accuse people of things. You know, I'm one of the people who say, let's wait for all the facts, you know, and that's annoying to a lot of people too.
Yeah, because everyone wants their boogeyman to be finally like, you know, incarcerated or run out of town with a pitchfork. Like that, like everyone wants justice so quickly now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, it's not how it works. Like, and I'm one of the people who I can fully on admit there's some people I just don't like and I find them annoying. And so I might be biased just based off of that. Like, you know, there's certain people I just don't like how they talk. It just annoys me when I hear them talk. And then I'm just like, can I just not have to hear this person anymore? But I'm willing to admit that. Like, I know that that's a thing for me.
I hope that's not me.
Like, I know when to separate myself from that. But not like other people are like, you know, I just don't like this person for this reason. Therefore, everything they do is wrong and they must be involved in all this other shady crap.
Yeah, you can't draw conclusions from your gut feelings about someone. That's just, you know, that's not facts. And so when people use that to condemn people, that's, you know, it's just intellectually dishonest and really sad.
And it's just the way things are nowadays. I love the internet. It's an amazing tool, but everyone thinks they're an expert on everything now. Like we have more information in the palm of our hands than anyone could have in their own mind. But like I feel like it means everyone tries to think they're expert on something, and it's like becoming an expert in a situation takes a while. In my paleobiology studies, like you find out that there's paleontologists who like they specialize in a certain animal type. Because if you actually look, like I'm going to use cetaceans, those are like whales and stuff as an example. We're talking about like hundreds of millions of years of evolution.
Yeah,
there's no way you can know everything about dinosaurs and everything about cetaceans. You know, it's just there's too much knowledge there. But I can look up most of that information that I would want to find on the internet somehow.
Yeah, but it took
there might be more to it.
It took someone to devote their life to only that in order to create that information and have it so readily available for you.
And when you look up that one piece of information, there's probably like a couple hundred pages more worth of information you have no idea about on the topic.
Yeah.
Like we don't know where bears came from. There's a lot of speculation, but we don't know what the evolutionary tree is for that. And only recently by studying DNA do we know that sea lions and stuff are related to them like as a distant ancestor somehow. Or there's something that looks like a rat in Africa. It's I'm trying to remember what it's called. It's like a rock something. It looks like a rodent, but it's related to elephants. That's its closest related. That's one of its closest related relatives.
So maybe that's that's why elephants are so afraid of mice and rats, is they think it's their in-laws.
Right? so it's like little and we find stuff out like that all the time. So it's like just because but I feel like people just Google an article and they go, this supports what I have to say, and they show it to me.
Yeah,
there's a lot of information out there that I feel like it comes from certain sources that people like to just dismiss because their findings don't agree with them. I like using like things that like the FBI and like Border Patrol, like their actual statistical findings as my evidence. So like, you know, when they say there's this amount of shootings in a year and there's this amount of murders and these are what the murders are committed with, like, you know, I like using those. And other people are like, oh, well, that's fake, or oh, that's not real. It's like, where are you getting your information from? And most of the time I don't really get an answer. And if I do, they just say, oh, well, I did my own research. It's like, the people recording that is the government. At a certain point, you're getting your information the same place the FBI is.
Yeah, it might just be filtered in a different way.
So, like, what? You just dismissed thing exactly. So it's like, what? You dismissed it in a certain way? I'm going to use mass shootings as an example. I think it's like over 4 or 5 people get shot at. It's considered a mass shooting. Mm-hmm. I don't necessarily think that description is unfair.
Yeah.
Because, like, I feel like putting a number too low just kind of like putting it too high just kind of makes the incidents sound not as bad as they are. But
yeah, it's like, well, you didn't kill 10 people, so it's not technically a mass shooting, but man, that's a lot of people.
And that's what people will say is like, oh, it wasn't a mass shooting, it was only 5 people. And it's like, well, he killed 5 people, but like there were like 40 people there to shoot at. So just because his aim sucks. But like people will dismiss those.
I feel like the better definition would maybe be like if they're like depends on the amount of people in the place. So if a robber kills a family of 5 in a robbery, like is that a mass shooting? That doesn't feel like a mass shooting. That's just a quintuple homicide, or a pentuple homicide.
I mean, the people getting shot at might disagree with you how massive that is, but
it's not like going to a public place and shooting bullets as much as you can. That's what you think of as a mass shooting.
That could very well be one of the things involved in a mass shooting definition. I'm just using like the number of people being shot at as part of it. Like I know
that is the only part
off the top of my head
for most of the stats.
It could very well be. But I think the reason they don't want to create too many different categories is because that would only muddy the waters further.
Yeah.
Information is hard enough to deal with already without now being like, oh, we have new categories of shootings. Like,
it just seems if
this happened inside some small mom and pop shop where only 10 people were working. Therefore, it's not a mass shooting. It's like technically it was still a public place. Mm-hmm. Oh, but it was owned by this lady and only her family were there at the time. It's like,
yeah, there's a lot of semantics in that, and I can see that
exactly.
But it just seems like if you're interested in sending out publicity and news, getting clickbaity about how the huge number of mass shootings there are, then you would want to define mass shootings as loosely as possible to get the highest number out of the data. So it's kind of like, what is their motivation? Everyone has a motivation.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why, like I said, I like to use places like the FBI, which again, I'm sure people are going to disagree with what I'm about to say, but I think they're pretty bipartisan. Like naturally leadership and people there change constantly. So the information is going to be going through so many different people that there's no way it could all be just like, oh, only Democrats or only Republicans control this, Yeah. Like, no.
And plus it's like,
Americans
real
control
data. It. You can't just fake real data without leaving a trail and then getting fired because that is definitely illegal and maybe going to jail. Like faking FBI data, that is something else. So like that's not stuff that's happening. The only kind of partisan stuff that could happen would be like in the example of the couple of people that were like implicated in like being biased against Trump at some point during the Russian
those people.
Scandal.
I was actually just about to bring that up because like like there are 2 people working under Mueller who were in a relationship. So personally, I don't like the fact that they were cheating on their spouses is irrelevant for the purposes of data.
Yeah.
I mean, Albert Einstein was a notorious little piece of. Well, Albert Einstein was a notorious horn dog. So I mean, I think he married his cousin or something too. So you can be smart and also be kind of a dick in real life. But
in fact, that might come with it.
Yeah, exactly. But anyways, these 2 people in a relationship, obviously outside of marriage, a lot of people made a big deal about that. But they definitely, with their text messages, were very big on not liking Trump. However, then I have to respect the FBI more though because of that incident. Because the second Mueller found out about it, fired him. Mm-hmm. He did not sit there and try to defend them.
They're good at weeding that out.
Yeah, exactly. Like, yes, is it bad it happened? Yes. But like, you're going to getting bad apples in a basket of apples is going to happen. Whether or not the people in charge of said basket get rid of them and how efficiently and quickly they do it, that should be how we judge them, not by the fact that they're going to have bad apples.
Yeah. And I don't think...
Because if we judge people by that, every group in history would be bad.
Yeah. I think even if there are undiscovered bad apples there, like, how much could they really do? How much damage could they really do? The only things that those two were doing was, like, they prioritized one case over another, like, you know, Trump's case over Hillary's or something. Like, they it wasn't even their decision. Like, they just promoted that, and they talked about, you know, having an insurance plan against Trump if he is elected, you know, that kind of a thing. They can't really do much more than that, because it would get them fired for changing anything or altering or putting a bias in the actual, like, results of something. You know, all of those results, I think, even if there are still bad apples in there that haven't been found yet, are untainted by that.
Because there's just too many hands touching it, and there's just and then there's too much check and balance.
Yeah, too much check and balance for that to really go there.
And again, this is my big thing. Even if you could argue that there's a 1% problem with the data they are collecting due to bias, you're telling me there's anything better from Joe Schmo down the street?
Yeah.
Just collecting his own data? Because he doesn't have access to all the like, one of the big issues with, like, crime in America right now is the fact that states don't really have a great way of cooperating with each other. One of the few organizations that can take information from different police and sheriff's departments is the FBI. And even then, they have to work hard to get it from people.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes it doesn't go where it's supposed to go.
And that's the FBI. Exactly. And sometimes it still doesn't get where it needs to go. And that's the FBI. So you want me to believe you can research better than them? It's like, no, that's not reality. Reality is not that you aren't capable of it. Reality is you do not have the infrastructure and resources to do it. Mm-hmm. So while you might feel like your data is more, like, balanced and more fair, you simply don't have access to all the data. It would be like me or you trying to do a science project, but we only get access to 1% of the science book. Yeah. It's just, it wouldn't be a good project. It's not that we aren't good at making the project. It's not that we're stupid. It's a lack of information.
Yeah.
But, like, nowadays, people just dismiss information from certain sources, because nowadays you can just claim that you know, everything, like, I do think news organizations needed to be brought down a peg because everyone was doing a bad job. This whole fake news craze is bad overall for information. The irony being, if you go look at, like, 6 years ago, how news agencies worked and how reporters worked and everything, and you look at compared to today, almost all of them have improved in one way, shape, or form. Like, I know I'm going to sound bad here because I'm not a huge CNN fanboy, but I can honestly say CNN 6 years ago was a hell of a lot easier to make fun of than right now, because they were called out, and it turned out they weren't really reporting properly and they weren't researching shit. Mm-hmm. The irony is everyone calling them fake news made them better at being news related, because now they had something to prove.
In that sense,
so it's not so
the fake news craze improved that, then, didn't it? It didn't hurt it.
It did, but the problem is now, due to its clear, due to the fact that it clearly was a very good way to get people to your side of an argument, everyone says fake news, or everyone says I don't believe that.
It did become a go-to, like, oh, well, you can't believe that. That's fake news, you know, like, without even looking at, like, well,
the FBI said this. The FBI says this happens. Well, that's just fake news. Oh, these polls say this. Well, those are the fake polls. And it's like, where else am I supposed to get the polls? Mm-hmm. Like, A, you shouldn't be doing polls on yourself, because obviously, and B, like, do you know a news organization? I don't. Mm-hmm. Because, again, Joe Schmo's news show in the basement doesn't count. We don't count. We're two nerds on the internet having a podcast. Yeah. Please do not use me as a source. Yeah.
If we say
use me as an excuse to look up sources.
There you go. It's like Wikipedia. Don't use Wikipedia as a source. Wikipedia has sources. Go to their sources. Make sure they're not
look at the Wikipedia
it.
page, read the Wikipedia page, and then go to their sources and fact check them. I think that's the other thing, is a lot of people, and this is YouTube, the news, Wikipedia, everything, claim all these things. the ones I trust typically are the ones who post their sources, or the ones I will listen to, because I don't like listening to someone I can't fact check. I get that everyone doesn't have that amount of time, but that whole, if it sounds too stupid to be true, maybe look into it. One, for instance, was I was at work, and for those of you who don't know, I'm a huge Second Amendment fanboy, but I also believe there's a limit. Like, you don't need a rocket-propelled grenade launcher. That being said, we were talking about that at work, and someone was like, "Oh, so you want the UK? You want what the UK has, where they're taking away people's silverware?" Obviously, I'm at work, so I can't really fact check it there.
Yeah.
So I go home and I research it, and what it actually was is you were not allowed to walk around in public with a non-folding knife that is larger than 3 inches. So people were getting their kitchen knives, which were longer than that length, being taken away if they traveled with them in open and they weren't chefs or something. Like, essentially, we have a similar law in the US, which is if you travel with certain defensive items, but you don't have a good reason for having them on you, it's considered a weapon.
Yeah, like if you have to use it, then you're you'll get pinged for that, because it's like, well, why did you have this on you?
Exactly.
What?
If you keep a baseball bat, it's like that whole joke about if you have a baseball bat in your car for self-defense, make sure there's a glove in there too.
Yeah.
Like, your lawyer will thank you. It's the same thing. So but instead of just waiting for a crime to happen, they'd be like, "Hey, you with the 6-inch dagger. Yeah, we're going to take that from you." They weren't being thrown in jail. But to be fair, in the US, it might raise an eyebrow if I walked around with a giant knife just in public.
Yeah.
So it was, what
you.
Essentially happened is this real incident of people just not being allowed to walk around with giant knives anymore was misconstrued into they're taking away, as it went down the food chain in America, we're hearing from certain pundits like, "Oh, they're taking away your silverware." It's like, hey, that's not silverware. I grill, and I would never call that silverware. And I've used really sharp, big knives to cut my steak. And even I think, whoa, bro, calm down. That's not silverware. So it's like that kind of thing where it was just like, and then people are like repeating this as though it's fact. And when I went back to work, I was like, did any of you even look this up? And they're like, no, this person told me about it. And I'm like, well, this person was wrong. It's a lot more nuanced than you think it is. Like,
yeah.
So that I just thought that was so amusing. Like, that's how information works nowadays.
Yep.
So if you think it's a good stopping point, we should probably move on to our silly topic.
Yeah, I think so. So what do we have today?
All right, let me get their randomized thing out. All right, so our silly topic. Would you rather A, be stuck in a zombie apocalypse, or B, be stuck in a Mad Max wasteland? Tell me which one and explain.
Okay. I feel like...
And when I think... just clarify. We should clarify what kind of zombies. Because nowadays there's a million of them. We aren't doing World War Z faster than all hell, climb up a wall like a bunch of ants. We're talking the Walking Dead zombies. Like slow, decrepit.
Is it kind of like The Last of Us? Or like, is there any cure in sight?
Let's say, actually, let's use The Last of Us instead. It's a biological problem, not like actual Walking Dead. So you don't have to shoot them in the head anymore. You can stab them if you need to. So it's a biological disease causing people to turn into a zombie, essentially. And it's currently not curable, let's just say, because infrastructure just isn't around anymore to try to cure it.
But as long as you keep yourself from getting, like, keeping it from getting in your blood, like, you're okay. It's not like a...
like, as long as you aren't having your arm ripped open and bit, you're fine.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, they also probably eat you alive if they can. So as long as part of you is left to become a zombie.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's use The Last of Us zombies kind of thing.
Well, I mean, it seems like to me, there's pros and cons to both. In Mad Max, everything seems a lot crazier, and you're fighting other humans that have full faculties and are dangerous, and it seems like it seems like I wouldn't do as well there because I'm less of a physical guy and more of a brains guy. So I don't think I would last very long. Well, I don't think I'd last very long in either one, but I think Mad Max would be worse for me because I wouldn't be able to, keep up with the other people that are, going out and raiding villages and stuff. I think in a zombie thing, like I think I would be able to fend off zombies for the most part as long as they're not too many, and we keep moving. Like I'd be able to wield a weapon in that sense. And as long as like the group I'm with, or if I'm alone, like as long as the group doesn't move too fast, because like I'm not in shape. I would probably get in shape pretty quick, but like it'd still take a while. So, but even in Last of Us, there were gangs and stuff. You had to fight humans just as much as zombies. So it's not like you're free from that. So either one would be a nightmare for me, but I think I would take the zombie one over Mad Max because in the zombie one, at least there's an enemy of my enemies that we can rally against that I might be able to use my brains to, convince the other humans there to not kill me because I can be useful in the fight against the elements, against the zombies.
Yeah, I can agree with that one. I think I would prefer the zombie one too. My reasoning is more though because I feel like people who are a little less constrained. We have a friend who is a bit more eccentric than us, and I think he would enjoy the Mad Max Wasteland doing a electric guitar while riding a flaming car.
Yeah.
But I feel like the Mad Max Wasteland is for if like you're like, oh, if I have to be in an apocalypse setting, I'm gonna have fun being in the apocalypse setting.
Yeah, that's true.
If you just had that like, if I was thinking it purely from a survival standpoint, I would be thinking of it from like, yeah, I'd probably prefer the zombie one because there's still a human infrastructure to it. To an extent, it might be a lot more fractured and more like village versus village, but at least it's there. Again, in our description, the zombies aren't like, an ant horde running down a hill at you. They're like actually something you can survive. Also, something I've never understood, and I understand that, God forbid, we have smart solutions in horror situations, but why doesn't anyone use like bite resistant / proof clothing in these apocalypses with zombies? The irony is like in The Walking Dead, there's a guy who he's testing zombies and he wears like a dog, like one of those dog bite jackets while doing it.
Yeah.
And one of them actually tries to get a latch on him and it doesn't work. And I'm just like, and no one else in his group is wearing these. And I'm just like, if everyone if you could just get a couple thousand humans with bite suits, which is just thick cloth.
Mm-hmm. Well,
you could eradicate the zombies.
I think for the most part, like the humans are not, they don't have as much planning. I guess when it's been going on for as long as The Walking Dead is, like, yeah, you'd expect eventually for people to get together and put that army together with all the suits and stuff. But at the beginning, like you don't have one of those lying around in your house, and also trying to travel and go different places while wearing one of those, especially if it's like super hot, like that's not going to end well.
No. I understand that, like, obviously in this scenario, the apocalypse has actually happened. I was just saying that, like, I have you noticed how, like, in every apocalypse scenario, like, Hollywood thinks that we're all just going to turn into a bunch of leather-wearing psychos, or the people the psychos are after because, we're the good guys. Like, yeah. I like how they think, like, human civilization in some shape or form wouldn't exist anymore.
Yeah, I feel like civilization is human core enough to survive that kind of a thing.
Like our humans cooperating isn't like something we just invented. It's like it's ingrained into us biologically.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can see that when you like put like when prisoners are put in like solitary confinement in the dark for days on end, they actually go insane. And it's not like it's because like being separated from other people for that long is like actually like it messes with us on a biological level. Yeah. Like, so like we're biologically programmed to band together against problems. yeah, we might band together against each other, but it's like why do they assume, like, as like a lot of people think it's going to be one for all kind of situations, like, or all for yourself kind of situations, or maybe your little family group. I was like, eventually, like, villages would start popping up that would be pretty, that might even work with other villages, but like, I don't think it would be as bad as Hollywood makes it out to be.
The thing that would be missing would be money and capital. That would be something that they'd have to come up with their own unique thing again, because, you know, everyone's got these American dollars and they don't mean squat anymore because everything's kind of shut down. So like, you in your own village, you need your own currency in order to exchange for labor and make that work. And so
during currency breakdowns in other parts of the world in history, when that's happened, or when bad things have happened, though, usually what happens is a form of barter very quickly comes to power.
Yeah. And people do that now, like with like, hey, I don't have the whole money, but I'll give you this too with the little bit of money I have. Like, you know, you can include things in a trade. People make those kind of trades all the time.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, you have access to you have access to a large spring of water.
Yeah.
But we have the farmland where we're raising the chickens and cows. We'll give you this goat and this cow for this much water.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
or hey,
or if you give
nice
us access to the would you do work for us?
Yeah, we'll give you a place to sleep and food to eat as long as you man the walls and keep the zombies out. You know, that kind of a thing.
Exactly.
You don't need to pay someone for that work if your payment is their safe living, you know?
Yeah.
It's just a more direct exchange for that capital.
Yeah. I think the way, I don't know if society is the correct word, but human interaction is it's a lot stronger than people think.
Mm-hmm.
I think we forget that too because of the kind of society we live in nowadays where everyone feels like they're at each other's throats. Mm-hmm. I think we wouldn't. I think actually, ironically, how spoiled and how, like, you know, when we don't have to, when we have life so easy as we do in America. I'm sorry, but even if you have a rough time in America, you probably have it better than other countries.
Mm-hmm.
You're listening to a podcast right now. Point proven.
You at least have a computer or smartphone that you can reliably use for leisure time.
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly. So clearly you are spoiled to an extent.
Yeah.
That actually is what leads to these petty little arguments we have.
Yeah, I think if we had to worry about where our next meal was coming from more, we wouldn't be talking on Facebook about who really killed Epstein.
Exactly.
It's a fix for everything.
Yeah. It's like we're that well off now where we can argue about dumb things that really make no sense. But again, once we, you know, well, if we were came to shove and we had to work together, I think we work together.
Yeah. And I also, I think it would be weird if, even if like the zombies happen, they killed a lot of people that are in pivotal places. I think we wouldn't lose our infrastructure as fast or as much as these zombie apocalypse things say that we would. Like, I think a lot of people would still have their cell phones that function, and I think the cell towers would still stay in operation for a long time. And or if not, then you'd be able to find where to go in order to make it work again. You know, like, and
mm-hmm.
I think the government would still stand because they have military defense for the White House would not fall from a zombie apocalypse. They would have defense there. So that would still exist, and they would still be broadcasting, and they'd still, like, people who have electricity would still get what they're saying. And there would be quickly local, like, churches set up that were like, if your power grid is out, you can go to the church and charge your phone and, you know, get supplies and stuff. Like, it wouldn't be that bad.
Speaking of which, actually, that makes sense. Like, even if we didn't have phones, radios.
Yeah.
The reason radios work the reason my phone doesn't work in the middle of the Amazon, but a radio does, is because, ironically, the quality of audio and the quality of communication is directly linked to how well it works in different scenarios. So like crappy FM radios work in the Amazon. It's just the quality is crappy of the music you're getting. But in that situation, like radio waves work across the world as long as you have batteries. Like, so that's something else is
you do need a big enough sender and receiver, but like
but like that, again, they were doing that in the 30s. At the end of the day, we would have ways to keep in communication with each other. Like, yeah, I won't be able to watch The Walking Dead anymore, but good news, you're living it. So like I think it would I think if something, again, it's an apocalypse, so a certain amount of infrastructure has to break down. But I think, again, it wouldn't break down to the point where they think it. There would be a lot more. This is the thing, in a Mad Max wasteland, the threat is the fact there's not a lot of resources, and that's why everyone's gone crazy and is pillaging and looting and raping and all that, because nothing matters anymore, because every day is starvation unless you're stealing and pillaging and raping.
And
whereas
the joke was even made in Rick and Morty, like if they were to suddenly have something like that produced enough electricity to support infrastructure again, like weeks they had a suburban life again.
Exactly.
Like just that's all they were missing, is just something to be able to support the progress that they want to make. And if they don't have that, then they can't progress. But if they have a way to get electricity really easily, then they make TV shows and stuff. They settle down. It's just
now suddenly they can use other devices to get resources other than, again, raping and pillaging. So whereas so I think that's the big thing is in one situation, at least the possibility of settling down is the thing. It might not be the most comfortable life, but it's there. Whereas in the alternative, it's infrastructure is just dead, and it's every gang for themselves. It's the worst case scenario of everyone wearing leather and fighting each other. But yeah, I think for people like us, it's like the zombie one's better. But there are other people out there who would have way too much fun with the alternative.
Oh yeah, way too much fun.
and that would be best for them. So I feel like it's how crazy are you? That's the determining factor. All right, so I think we're ready to move on to a past event then, right? All right, so for today's
historical topic,
we will go ahead and do, and this one ought to be interesting. FDR. How great was he, actually? Man who led us through World War II, but also definitely had some skeletons in his closet.
So let's hear the facts on this one.
All right. So facts: he was a U.S. president. He was elected for up to 16 years in office, I believe, but he was not. I know he didn't finish his final term. He died. Had polio. Back then, the media was a lot more civil, and it was important to the American media that he not be seen as weak. So they made sure not to videotape him in his wheelchair. Or take pictures of him in his wheelchair. They're very rare. Back when we all used to get along. Nowadays, that'd be all over the internet, and we'd be yelling at each other and about how he's a weak leader because he can't stand for America.
Yep, unfortunately.
Let's see, what else was there? He some of the things that people don't like that I've heard a lot of people bring up is he's definitely he pushed for a lot of our social programs nowadays. And also another one is he tried to pass a law through the Senate that would allow him to increase the number of judges on the Supreme Court, which would have let him pack the court. It failed, like bipartisanly failed, but he did try to increase the number of judges. specifically to try and push his social programs, I believe, is what the reasoning was. It's kind of hard to say what his actual reasoning was, but like that's the belief.
Yeah. I feel like just there's an imbalance there. Like, it seems that the checks and balances that were there have kind of faltered because the legislature has like given up some of their power to the courts. You know, like decisions that define social progress should come from legislature and not a court ruling, you know? But it's the move toward an activist court. That's the problem. So like they're being activists, they're making decisions for things coming all the way up to them that are not, they're not previously written in law. So like the proper channel would be, go to your senator or House representative and petition that they change laws to make like gay marriage legal. But the way it's happening is two gay guys try to get married. It goes up the courts until it reaches the Supreme Court, and then they make a decision whether or not that should be legal now. And once the Supreme Court says it, then all of the states have to follow that, because if it goes up the court again, it's going to come down to the same decision. So that precedent makes a new law, basically. And that seems like it would have been a really big problem if the amount of people on the Supreme Court was stacked one side or the other, but it shouldn't have been. It shouldn't, like, that's the Supreme Court shouldn't be a partisan place. They should be interpreting what the Constitution says, and if it's not defined in the Constitution, they shouldn't be making new laws. They should say, hey, legislature, this is not covered in our laws. Make a new law, instead of saying, yeah, now this is the law. Yep. Like that's court, like Supreme Court cases should have that third option of like, well, we don't know. Ask the legislature, but the legislature seems to have just, pawned off that responsibility onto the Supreme Court. And that seems,
well, I think the reason they wanted it was so he could pass, if I would understand correctly, the reason he would want the courts isn't so he can pass laws using the courts as his excuse. It would be to make, what are they called? I just lost the name of it. It's when a president essentially creates a temporary law through his own power, and they can be overturned in the Supreme Court.
Executive orders?
Executive decision.
Yeah.
Is that, yeah. It would essentially be so he could make executive orders, and essentially the Supreme Court would back him on it.
Yeah.
Because normally the way it works is the Senate and everything go, oh crap, this isn't okay. So then they chuck it up to the Supreme Court and say, this is why it's not okay. And the Supreme Court would decide if an executive order is unconstitutional.
Yeah.
It's why people who think the president has all this power because they can do executive orders is wrong, because they're specifically designed to where they can be torn away immediately if they don't like them. Or if first off, the next president can get rid of them, like with a finger snap. And if they're actually unconstitutional, the Supreme Court can get rid of them there and then. Mm-hmm. The whole purpose of executive orders is as temporary fixes, not as permanent solutions.
Yeah.
Hence the reason hence how fragile they are, because to get other laws off the books takes a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Going through the Senate and everything, and having the president not veto it, like it's a lot. But yeah, so him trying to stack the courts is definitely, when I found about that, I was like, I definitely like him a bit less now.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of presidents who did a lot of stuff I don't agree with. Perfect example, recently, Obama got universally hand claps for this, but he just pretty much came out and said, if you look deep enough, everyone has like every possible leader is going to have a problem in their closet.
Mm-hmm.
It's not possible to lead and not form problems. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
It's too complicated a process. Obviously, there's a line that you shouldn't cross, but there's also things where it's like, again, he tried to pack the courts. He failed.
One little like partisan a mistake like that doesn't ruin an entire legacy, It's just it's something that should be taken account, though, if you're trying to claim that he's one of the best presidents ever. So, but
exactly.
I have a question. At the time, was serving a third term not unconstitutional? Like, that
He's the
seems
reason,
kind of bizarre.
He's the reason term limits were made.
Oh, so there weren't term limits before him?
Yeah. So what happened was when he went to go do a third term, his party said, yeah, no president's ever done this before. It's considered a tradition not to serve 2 terms. Mm-hmm. And he said, screw that, I'm going to do it anyways. And he ran as his own independent, and he won.
Jeez.
He's my example of an independent can win.
Yeah.
It's just in today's atmosphere, it's a lot less likely. And it's the atmosphere is the problem, not the fact that an independent is a problem.
Yeah.
But he won 2 elections as an independent. Keep in mind, Theodore Roosevelt won as an independent as well. That's where the bull moose thing comes from. He invented the bull moose party.
Ah,
that's his party. Yeah. Roosevelt's they get shit done apparently.
Yeah. So it seems like definitely the time he was loved by both sides because winning landslides in today's climate would be unheard of, but because everyone plays to their own team. But at the time, he was definitely looked at as one of the best. Probably it's not one of those where after they're done, you look back at their presidency and say like, actually, he was pretty dang good. It's one of those where at the time, like everyone loved him, right?
Well, even today, most of the people who hate on him, most of the people I hear hating on him are pretty right wing. And the reason that he's getting hate, like the whole he packed the courts thing was something new I learned about. That one I could see being like, oh yeah, he shouldn't have done that. It's like I said, he pushed for all the social programs we see today. Medicare, or is Medicare one of them? I think Medicare is one of them. It's the equivalent of, it's something like Medicare. Retirement stuff, welfare, like he pushed for a lot of these things. But back in the day, they worked because keep in mind he was also president during a depression.
Yeah, I think he took office during it, so he like pulled it out. Yeah, pulled the country out of it.
He did some other things, like he was like, okay, everyone with obscene amounts of wealth and gold hidden in their basement, this is where we need to pull together and like use those to fix the country. To be fair, the only people with gold in their basement were the stock market brokers who fucked it up to begin with. So, I mean, do I necessarily believe that you should confiscate people's wealth? Not usually, but when your corruption has led to everyone starving in the streets, we'll consider it a fine.
Yeah.
I feel like it's like comparing it to today isn't fair because we have not yet experienced this.
Yeah.
Also, my big thing is all of these things he pushed through, though, they all happened with the Senate churning them out with him. He didn't. These aren't executive orders. If they were, they'd be gone by now.
Yeah.
These were laws he pushed for, but people had to help him with that. And also, all these people who are like, oh, well, they're just bad and they shouldn't be around anymore. It's like, well, then don't blame him. Blame your senator.
Yeah.
You're blaming a guy who lived 60 plus years ago for a problem that like any group of senators could have just fixed. They could have been like, okay, this is a dated law. It was created for a time and era we no longer live in. So to me, to say, oh, he's bad because he made this thing happen, it's like, well, at the time it got us through a depression. It got us, and I know everyone's going to say like, no, World War II and World War I got us through a depression. But again, I'm sorry. Did those help? Oh yeah. Not gonna lie. But let's go ask the people starving in the breadline if he helped them out. Like, you really think he won universally without his programs doing some good?
Yeah, especially getting elected that many times. At the time, it was obviously seen as a good.
Yeah,
it would just
keep in mind it was considered in it because the tradition was started by George Washington that you don't serve more than 2 terms.
Yeah,
because he chose not to serve a third, even though he could have been president till the day he died.
Yeah. He's like, we don't want kings.
But he said 2 terms. Yeah, but he said 2 terms is enough. I'm retiring. And so from then on, everyone else was like, 2 terms is a tradition. So keep in mind, when he went to run for a 3rd term, it was like, this is sacrilege. There was a ton of propaganda against him, how he was like un-American and stuff. Still wins in a landslide twice.
Man.
And this is back when electoral college actually wasn't a problem.
Yeah. So
that's
it seems
its own
like the
complicated topic. But
the only thing then that would like, from our perspective now, like condemn him as not a good president would be that, like, well, now the programs that he started are not a good idea, in some people's opinion. And so the fact that he started them makes him bad. But I don't think that really holds water, because at the time, everyone loved it, And so how can you, from our now perspective, judge what they did then, when everyone, like, there was no dissenting opinion, or like, if there was, it was a very small minority. And then you look at it, those decisions worked. He pulled us out of the Great Depression. Like, at the time, those were the good policies that we needed. So, even if nowadays we're like, oh, I wish he hadn't started all those social programs. Like, now they're being abused by so many people. Like, well, that's kind of...
Don't blame the dead guy.
Yeah. If you want something to change, then change it. Now. Don't blame the people who started it because it was good when they did it.
Yeah, and that's just, like, again, one of those problems of nowadays is everyone wants to blame someone else for the problem. It's never your fault. It's never your group's fault.
Yeah.
Your group had nothing to do with it. It's this group's fault, or it's this specific person's fault.
Yeah, and I think it would have happened anyway, but I also kind of want to blame him for the Green New Deal, because he made the original New Deal. And holy cow,
it's something where I want to get behind it, but there's enough bad in it to where I'm like, ugh.
Yeah, like, I'd love to get behind environmentalism, but you talk about how we need less cows because the methane from the, like, what? Just I mean, it's okay.
It's the problem is it's so complicated that people take things, and it's simple in its wording, but it has so much going on inside of it that you can take it to extremes. Yeah, and that's an actual problem. I understand that the reason they left the wording simple was to give them leeway to fix problems instead of being constrained to a rule within the law they made.
Yeah.
But then, like, if you make it possible to get rid of all the cows, which I don't think was their goal, but the fact that it was an actual legal possibility, if this had passed, that they could try to, like, get rid of cows, I can understand why that makes people feel off-put about that.
And
it's not that was their plan
in order to make it all, more power efficient. Like, oh my gosh, how expensive do you think that is? And that part isn't even necessary.
Well, and that part isn't even necessary. That's the dumb thing.
Yeah.
Is corporations, like big corporations, I'm not talking about small ones who are just little, like, mom and pop shops trying to show how economically friendly they are. Big corporations, Disney, Amazon, Walmart, they have all, even China as a government has said, we're moving to renewable sources of energy. And they're not doing it because it's, like, obviously China isn't doing it because they want to be a bunch of liberals.
Yeah.
They're doing it because it makes money sense. Your infrastructure being more renewable and reliable makes sense economically.
Yeah.
So they if there was too much like, I agree with what they were trying to do. I disagree with how they wrote it and were trying to do it. All they did was scare people because they wrote it like a bunch of extremists instead of writing it so that someone who's just a working class citizen can go, oh, this is a good idea because in 10 years, I would like for my power bill to be halved.
Yeah. But I think probably the biggest problem in it is to provide, like, income to people who are unable and unwilling to work. That was a oof. Mm-hmm. A big oof there.
Yeah. There's a lot of that they also hurt their ability to sell it by putting other weird things in there. I mean, one thing I have to give to them is since that whole new election happened is 150 laws they've at least written. Some of them look okay. Some of them are like the Green New Deal where I'm like, oh, guys.
Yeah.
I wanna like it. But even I can see the problems this could lead to.
Yeah.
So
anyways,
no, but yeah.
FDR.
Yeah.
Or no,
we got way off topic because of the New Deal.
Yeah, FDR.
Yeah, FDR. Let's see. He's responsible for better or for worse. Well, so first off, I should say they were going to be made either way. He is definitely responsible for America getting the nuclear weapon program going. Einstein came to America, was like, hey, this is going to be a problem. Germany's already working on one. And he said, do you think you can make one first? And he was like, we'll try. So, for better or for worse, he's responsible for that. He didn't live long enough to give the actual order, but
yeah, I wouldn't hold that against him because if you look at all of the context at the time, like people love criticizing that decision to drop the bombs, but how many more American soldiers had to die to accomplish that same thing? It stopped the war. Yeah, it was horrific, but it saved American lives. So, like,
not just Americans, it would have saved Japanese and Pacific theater lives. Anyone in the Pacific theater.
Because countless more of them would have died in bloody, horrific warfare had they not been able to just stop, And so it was just...
Well, in hindsight, it's 2020, too.
Yeah, you can, of course, look back at it and say, oh, if you would have done this and that, then they would have surrendered, and you wouldn't have had to do all that horrific things with the bombs. Like, well, but what did they know at the time, though? It's easy to condemn them for that, but...
So I think the big thing to remember, too, is I understand, like, we were, when we beat Germany in World War II, they were, like, months away from having a working nuclear bomb. Like, I don't think people realize just how close that deadline was. So technically, if we hadn't invented it and we beat Germany and we hadn't dropped it, we probably wouldn't live. There is a chance we wouldn't live in a world with nuclear weapons being a threat. It's not a guarantee, obviously, because clearly people knew about the concept.
Yeah.
Because multiple countries looked at it and went, what about this? But the bottom line being that it's easy to say, well, we wouldn't have nuclear weapons either way. But like at the time, we genuinely thought another country was working towards it. And so our thought process was, we need the equal power they have. It just so happens that Germany was beaten before they could have it. And then it turns out we now have this big bomb, but we're still in a war with Japan, who is yet to surrender yet. So they, also, and I think this is an interesting topic, point of contention for it. We talk about how we dropped the bombs and how horrible it was. Most people don't understand. America did more damage with a firebombing campaign to Japan than we did with both nuclear weapons combined. And not by a small margin either, like twice the amount of destruction, both in lives and like a territory lost.
Well, people can go back into those lands and rebuild. I don't think you could build. I mean,
nowadays people can go back to. Nowadays you can build in the places where you drop the bombs.
Okay.
The half-life of nuclear material once it's been blown up with a bomb is. Can you go in immediately? No. But nowadays there are parts of those areas which are livable again.
Okay.
There are other areas where there's a little bit of radiation problems, but they're sealed off.
Yeah.
So those cities are livable in. But the nuclear weapons are just a dangerous concept in general. The problem is no one could have seen that at the time.
Yeah, it's like
the whole point was we didn't know. All we knew is if it was a creatable weapon, then it was going to be the most powerful thing the world had ever seen.
Yeah.
That's all we knew at the time. In fact, when they first dropped the first nuclear bomb, there was genuine concern that they were about to burn away the Earth's atmosphere. Like so some of the scientists actually thought that was going to... We had never dropped one before, and there weren't computer models back then.
Yeah.
The computers that existed back then were like the size of your garage and had less power than our iPhones by quite a wide margin. that Google couldn't run on those things. So there was no one doing computer models to see what would happen. All they could do was theorize, because all they knew was we're going to have some fraction of the power of the sun about to be released on this planet.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people were like, well, if you released even a fraction of the power of the sun on this planet, would there be a planet left?
Mm-hmm. Would it chain reaction and just destroy everything?
Yeah, there were a lot of theories about it.
But so they hadn't actually
I think
detonated...
before we dropped to the first one, I know that Einstein and other scientists were working on theories to see what the outcome could be if they dropped it.
Yeah.
Not finishing the bomb. The bomb was ready to drop. They just wanted to verify, okay, is this even worth testing?
Yeah. So when did all the testing in Utah happen with all the in Nevada, all those explosions?
I don't remember off the top of my head.
Was it during the Cold War then? Or
no, this was World War II. Because think about it.
Did the testing happen during the Cold War? Because they're making them bigger and better to compete with Russia.
Oh, well, I think they just used existing concepts. To an extent.
Because I'm pretty sure they blew up some nuclear stuff in Utah, right? Didn't they? Am I just making that up?
I'm not sure about Utah. Nevada Proving Grounds is one of the things you're thinking of.
Oh, okay, Nevada.
It's where the first... Yeah, so far we've used... apparently Nevada is our bitch.
Yeah. I think it's probably the state... it may not be maybe Alaska has more government-owned land, but Nevada is very government-owned. If you look at a map of, yeah,
and there's a lot of waste
territory
land out
versus...
there to take advantage of.
Yeah. So they own a lot of that.
There's land you wouldn't mind being irradiated because you're going to die a slow, painful death if you live there either way.
Yeah.
So,
although I might describe all of Arizona as something you just want to pass through and not stay, but I think I might offend someone.
Yeah, there's parts of Arizona which aren't fun. Luckily, I live in the part with a house and AC.
Yes.
Hey, actually, right now it's getting to the 40s at night. It's feeling real nice. Mm-hmm. This is the good time of year. Yeah. The downside being all the snowbirds are coming here.
Oh yeah. Clogging up the streets.
By the way, Idaho drivers suck.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel bad for saying this.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, all the people who have snowbird license plates.
Yeah. Well, hey, they're not
drive
here
differently
anymore.
Down here, guys. You're throwing us off. Yeah, I know. You must be happy.
Yeah.
Just so you know, I'm only joking a little bit, but I am joking.
Well, all right. It seems like we've kind of come to a conclusion for FDR that, he was fantastic at the time. Some of the things he implemented, while necessary at the time, might need to be looked at again for our current status. But as it stands, it was a very good idea to do them at the time.
We shouldn't knock him because of our indecision, essentially.
Yeah. So I think for the most part, the only real bad things was the attempting to stack the courts to more easily get through the stuff he knew needed to happen.
Yeah.
But he was able to work with the legislature just fine, so I don't think he really even needed that. So it seems like he was a pretty good president after all.
Yeah. Definitely not the worst. I'm sure we'll find a worse one of these days. That'll tell you what, let's try and figure out that might be our next topic. We'll see about that.
Yeah, who's the worst in all of history.
All right. Well, I think this is a good stopping point for the podcast. We will all see you guys next week.
So I guess it'd be great if we shared some socials. This is going to be uploaded onto youtube.com/nothingspecialty. And that's where other things that I make go, as well as VODs for streams, which Ben also joined me on one of the streams for Nothing Specialty in the past. So hopefully we'll make this a regular thing, and we'll be able to deliver at a decent time, because I know there's going to be a lot of editing goes into it. But until next time, this is Chris and Ben signing off.
Ooh. See you next week.